Welcome to Death Holler, the place of haunted hearts and haunted homes. We welcome you to Death Manor, the home that boasts the most ghosts. Come on in. We've been expecting you. Take a look around. You might see someone that you recognize. Do you hear those voices? That's just the Reverend Dr. Death and Llareyna. They're so happy to see you. Sit back and relax. Make yourself at home. Your new home. And remember, when you're in Death Holler, listener discretion is always advised. We hope you enjoy the show.
Man, this episode seemed like it was never going to happen. Am I wrong in that? I mean...
You're not wrong. It's one of those episodes that we get that are kind of cursed. You know, where it's like we're trying to make things happen, and then we'll have like, obviously you got sick, I had issues, then we had studio situations. Yeah, it was a struggle to get here. What was one of the other episodes?
Well, the one that you couldn't, if you can't find the history, I mean, what was it, legend or whatever? I think that one's completely gone. So
it's sad because it's like there. It's like the ghost is there, but the actual body isn't. And it's horrifying because it's like, I don't want to let go of the files that I have. But what happened was the files, it looks like they're there. It just like they're all out of order, and I don't know how to put them in order. The only thing I'd be able to do would be to take your audio and to fake it until we make it. And that was a pretty long episode. So I'd be in here by myself just responding to your recording. It's possible.
Yeah. I don't know. And I'm still recovering from the vids.
Oh, yes. Yeah, the COVIDs.
So my energy levels are an all-time low, which is not the greatest for recording, but it is what it is. The show must go on, as they say.
At least we just get to sit on our butts and talk. So, but that can be hard. Yeah.
Well, the thing is also like, and this is going to suck for this episode slightly, but like I feel like I'm going to have to remember things as we go along, just because like these movies have kind of like came and went in my mind, already, and I'm on to other things. But hopefully we'll get back as we get back into it, they'll things will come back and I'll remember more about what I was going to originally say before everything happened. But
one thing I wanted to mention, hubby, he was with me when I watched one of them, at least. You cannot indicate whether you thought I liked the movie or not, because we are introducing something a little new in the future where both of you, I'm not going to watch the movie. Obviously, I'm never around the Reverend when I watch movies, but I can't be around you anymore when I watch these films, and I'm going to have to use my poker face, and you guys are going to have to determine whether I liked the film or not.
Your judgment's going to get, mine's going to be, because I was hella high when you were watching the movie last night.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Do you think you remember how I felt about the film?
Yes.
Oh, okay, well then you definitely can't indicate. So yes, in rewatching one of the films last night, the hubby got to get all of my, excitement or not on how I felt about it. So we'll get to that towards the end. On to you, Reverend.
Well, I was just going to bring up, of course, HHN 31 happened.
Yes.
We went to Orlando, and I can't remember what ranking of houses I sent to you, but I kind of got a vague memory of it in my mind that I can kind of go over. So Dead Man's Pier is number one across the board.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise.
Everybody said that.
I don't know what you're thinking if you say otherwise. Although I will say this, coming out of the Weekend house, I think that the Generation Z, that's their favorite house, because everybody that came out that was of that age was just like over the moon. And I'm just like, what the hell are you guys smoking right now?
Well, let me mention something in reference to that. Everybody, even the people who love The Weeknd, I'm kind of mediocre on him. I don't hate him. I don't love him, but I do enjoy the music. Everyone talked shit about that house. So what I think happened is the expectations were so low, and it actually turned out to be pretty decent, halfway decent anyways, that they were like, holy shit, I thought this was going to be horrible.
Yeah, it's one of those houses that lowered expectations helps it a lot. Still, The second time going through the house, it did drop in my rankings from the time that I told you. Like, it was the first house we went through. I was kind of impressed by it the first time I went through because I rock bottom expectations. And lighting effects, some of the stuff they've got in there, like gore wise and all that, are pretty good. But going back through it, like the scares are all the samey. It's like you've either got a version of the Weekend himself, like, you know, with either bandages or some kind of demonic face, or you got those chicks that look like they're straight from Resident Evil, you know, hoochie mamas basically throughout the house. And they're either tearing him apart or they're, you know, enjoying the, you know, the bloody mayhem. And that's literally the house. Like, if it wasn't for the lighting effects and some of the other things in that house to kind of, you know, give it a different vibe and the music itself, like, it would have probably been near the bottom of my list. But some of the stuff in the house brought it up to around 5. It settled at 5 for me, you know, out of 10.
Yeah, which is not half bad, but
It's not, I mean, I swear to God, it was just so aggravating coming out of the house and hearing like the younger people just like so over the moon. I'm like, what? Have you ever been to a scary movie before? Do you even know? They're like, that is so frightening. I'm like, it wasn't, but okay.
You know what's sad is this is the thriller of their time.
Yeah, well, and somebody pointed that out, that if the one thing about this house is if it opens up more music houses for HHN and it brings in thriller, then by God, it was worth it, because I think Thriller would be an awesome house.
Oh,
even
yeah.
if it's zombies and all that. So, Dead Man's Pier number 1. Number 2, I think I'm going to give it to Halloween. I wasn't going to give it to that, but I went through it multiple times and they did that movie justice. It's really good. There's multiple fake out scares in that house that I really love. Like, they've got multiple Michaels. Like one that really got me, like I was not expecting this. There was a Michael down this alleyway, and it's right before this big nice facade they built of the house itself that's about halfway through the experience. And then I was looking at him and I was like, okay, there he is. He's going to come out. No, by God, there was one that was right beside of me that popped out. And I was just like, okay, you got me. That was good. You know, I wasn't expecting it.
I do remember that one being pretty fucking fun.
And there's a house of mirrors near the end of it where there's a bunch of Michaels throughout that. And you never know which one's going to move. Like, the first time I went through, the last one was the one that got me because he was the one that moved. And then going through it, I was like, yeah, I'm waiting for that motherfucker. And I swear if another one didn't pop out or, you know, move as I was going through it. So I'm like, you got me, house. You did good, you know. Bugs is probably my 3rd. No, I take that back. I forgot Monsters. Monsters is so well themed that Legends Collide. It has to be my number 3.
And it wasn't cheesy? Because I was kind of thinking that one would be a little cheesy.
No, at least in Orlando, they've got it set up like it's this archaeological dig in Egypt. Like, you go in there and they've got like, I mean, it's got the sand, you know, in places. It's like, you know, they've dug down and they've uncovered this like temple of Anubis or something. And then you're going through the ruins of this temple and you're seeing like in constantly the Wolfman, the Mummy. They're the 2 primary ones in the house. They've kind of oversold Dracula in this, but anyways, those 2 are constantly like popping out in different places along with like these different Egyptian scenes, and they're really well done. I mean, they've got it themed well. It looks cool. And then even the interaction with Dracula toward the end of it, I mean, they've got some cool scenes where you kind of see like a shadowy version of him turning from a bat into a man, and, you know, different things like that. And the end is cool because you can go through the house multiple times and there's a different winner, quote unquote, at the end. Like, one time we went through and it was Dracula holding the Wolfman's head. And then another time that we went through, it was the Wolfman holding Dracula's head. And it was hilarious because this woman was so scared that was behind me that she was looking off to the side. And that Wolfman scare actor had to literally hold that Dracula face right next to hers. And then when she finally turned around, she like jumped back like 5 feet. It was
Those are the best.
You know? But, yeah, really well themed. It's their property, so Universal knows how to use them to their effectiveness. I enjoyed that one a lot. Bugs was my 4th house. It was cheesy in all the great ways that I hoped it would be. It was like that typical 1950s, almost Fallout style humor, you know, where it's just like, welcome to the world of tomorrow. And then, like, you know, things just go off the rails. And then, you know, they got all kinds of like, The thing that disappointed me was that house suffered the most, and even just the 3 days we were at HHN of just damage. And this is one of the reasons why you want to go multiple times if you can to HHN, because the first night we went through, it was perfect. Like everything was functioning. We got the full effect of it. The second time we went through it, there had been a bunch of rain down in Florida.
Oh yeah.
And it had destroyed these two TV screens they had outside that were showing like just these massive bugs or whatever to kind of get you in that vibe. Those TVs were no longer working because you could see the rain droplets on the inside of them. So I'm assuming the water got to them. And then on the inside of the house, my favorite thing toward the end of it was there's this little maggot puppet that they had. It was just, I mean, so cheesy but funny, you know, and cool. Like it was just like, you know, like poking out this wall like as you was leaving. And I swear to God, when I was leaving the second time, like somebody had punched it or something where it was back in the hole that it was supposed to come out of, and it was completely broke. And I'm just like, you know, this is the reason we can't have good things, people. This sucks.
This is why we can't have nice things, folks.
So I was a little disappointed the second time I went through it just because some of that stuff had happened, but it was a fun house. And the effects they did on the scare actors were really good because they were, I mean, they basically had like maggots and other bugs like sticking out of their face.
No.
Like they had been like they were burrowing in.
No, thank
which
you.
is a creepy effect.
Get away from me.
Of course, I said the weekend was 5. Samey, you know, it was what it was. I would probably say Chupacabras was my 6th.
Wait,
I thought
hold
that
on.
They did a good.
Hold, please. Gotta ask. Was there jiggly bandaged nurse titties in the weekend one? Because in Silent Hill, they're real jiggly.
Here's the thing. They were dressed where they very well could have been, but a lot of the scare actresses were not well endowed. And I hate to say that, but they were not. So I don't know if that was an intentional decision, but, you know.
Well, that's false advertisement for the commercials they've been posting. So, all righty.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. Let's go back. Chupacabra.
Yeah, it was number 6.
Say it right. I'm just
enjoyed
kidding.
I enjoyed it. It was one of their slasher style houses where it was just a lot of like, you know, people jumping out with knives. So it got a little samey that way, but they had cool Chupacabra puppets that kind of livened it up a little bit. So I liked that.
Wait, people jumping out with knives. What does that have to do with Chupacabra?
Well,
okay.
The story for the house is that town holds a Chupacabra festival that they basically take tourists and feed to the Chupacabra so that they can pacify it.
I like that. Okay, that works.
Yeah, so you're basically getting murdered by the people in that town so that the Chupacabra gets appeased is what it amounts to.
And they can keep it at ease, maybe.
Yeah, and that's what they're hinting at. Number 7, I'm trying to think of the other houses. Maybe Spirit of the Coven. I did enjoy like aspects of that house, but it really got samey like toward the end because it didn't really have a good story to it toward the end. It was just like you started going in like this root cellar, and then the farther down in these tunnels you went, the more satanic, you know, the witches got, and that was about it. But I mean, it had some cool scenes as far as that goes. Number 8, let's see what else they had there. They had Descendants of Destruction. Yeah, I wanted that house to be a lot better than it was. That's the one where you go into the abandoned like New York tunnel, and you had like these mutants or whatever from Fallout radiation or whatever that were like hunting you. They had one cool scene in it, which was a subway train that you entered, and and I got real heavy Fallout vibes from that. But then the rest of the house was just basically like people that were like, you know, slightly bandaged, or, you know, like they had, I don't know, they worked in like this. I mean, the makeup effects weren't spectacular to me, and it was just them like, you know, acting like they were going to cut you up and eat you. I was just like, I can take it or leave it. I've seen it before.
Slash or pass, Reverend. Slash or pass.
That one was a pass. I did not care for it. I think it was expectations too, because I read so much about it and everybody was like freaking out saying it was like the farther you went through it, the darker it got. So there was more like lighting things that was going to mess with you, and it really wasn't the case. So
yeah.
And then number 9 would be Blumhouse, and it would have been number 10, but it did move up the last time we went through it, just because whenever that house is decked out with scare actors, it does work better. I don't know. I've heard people say that black foam was their favorite half of the house, but I tended to like Freaky a little bit better just because it was more fun. Like black foam was a lot of the grabber just popping out and like, saying something really loud or, or whatever. And then there he was. I didn't necessarily like how they did it though, because it was a complete separation of the two houses. Like you literally left one house that was built through the Fast and Furious queue, the rides queue, and you had to walk a short distance and you went to a totally different house. So, I mean, it was like they didn't integrate them at all. It was just like completely separate. But it was dead last after the very first time I went through it, because I was just like, why? I mean, and the wait times for that house toward the end of our time there, getting toward the weekend, were ridiculous. Like you could go to the Dracula or, the Legends Collide Monsters house and it only had like a 30-minute wait time. Whereas it was an hour plus for Blumhouse, and there's no reason for it because that house was not that good for that hour wait. I don't know what people were thinking.
Well, people don't know that, and if they liked the movies at all, which clearly the movies got pretty decent reviews, I am not at all surprised that they had those long wait times.
I guess there's that, yeah. But even the weekend, didn't have wait times like that, and I thought that was going to be the big draw for that, event.
Yeah, and that's funny because a lot of buzz around that, good and bad, which just goes to show. Well, I guess it doesn't go to show because obviously it wasn't busy out here in LA. It has up to 2-hour wait times for the peasants. So, yeah, but.
Yeah, and then finally that Hell Block was the last one on the list, and it definitely cemented itself as number 10 after the last time we went through it, because that's one of those houses that was a last-minute addition, and you could tell, there was no theme to it. It was just a bunch of monsters, thrown into one area, and they would just pop out randomly. But the thing that hurt it was that a house like that with no theme really needs for its scare actors to be just on top of everything and getting you left and right as you go through it.
Yeah.
And the second time we went through that, which was the last night we were there was holes everywhere where they were missing scare actors. Now I've heard they've had several people quit since the beginning of the event, so that could have been the reason why. But that hurt that house so much because if it wasn't constantly popping, it wasn't. It was just dead bottom.
That fucking sucks. I've kind of heard the same thing out here. Ironically, where it never rains in Southern California, it's been raining a lot out there, so I'm a little concerned.
It rained so much on us Thursday night, and I think that's kind of what led into the COVID, us catching COVID anyways.
Yeah.
But it was so bad and rainy. We literally only went to 4 houses that night, and we were sopping wet, and it was miserable. And I was just like, yeah, this sucks. I'm not, and we couldn't, and that was going to be one of our scare zone nights where we just sat around at the scare zones and kind of took pictures of those. They don't run when it's raining, so we didn't even get that out of it.
It's
so
dangerous.
It really sucked.
I heard none of the houses, both in Orlando and Los Angeles, I heard none of them are prepared for rain. They're not made for rain.
There's 2 or 3 houses that are good in the event of a rain down there right now, and that's Dead Man's Pier, Halloween, and Hell Block, all because their queues are either covered as you're going into them, or at least partially covered, or the houses are inside their big studio buildings. So you're good once you get inside the building. It's just that if you're standing outside, you're part of the time you're out in the queue, you're going to get rained on. So, and I would say Hell Block was the best for all of them because they had it. The queue for it actually was inside of the Blue Man Group building. So you were covered the entire time you were waiting for that house.
Oh, nice.
Even if the house sucked itself. So
there it goes. Okay.
But scare zones were really good this year. They were better than they have been in the past. The one that was the biggest disappointment for me, though, was the Scarecrow, the Reaping one or whatever, because that's a number 1 house for most people, and they convert to a scare zone, and everybody thought it was going to be great because they had that mini haunted house built into it where you walk through the barn, and scare actors would it was closed in so they could get to you. They never had one scare actor in that barn the entire time we was down there.
Oh,
Not
boo.
one. And it has a setup for those bungee jumpers, where they jump down from the rafters and then pop back up.
Yeah.
I saw the setup for it, but there was never anybody down there. So I was like,
fucking
yeah.
sucks. And it wasn't raining the entire time you were there, right?
No, that last night we were there was perfect. Like you couldn't have asked for better weather in Florida. It was like 70 degrees. It was sunny. I mean, wind was blowing. It was perfect. And there was still nobody in that scare zone like that. So
Now, for the viewers who have not been able to attend Hollywood Horror Nights, or maybe that have and don't know this, when you're in line, you should be paying attention because they give you the information about the house. They give you the backstory. Can you think, or can you tell us, is there another way to get that backstory for people who, say, may have express passes and just get to walk on through? How would you get the backstory?
You need to read them before you go into them because, like, actually this year they didn't do as good of a job at giving you the backstory before you got in the house.
Okay.
And I thought that was interesting. Like going toward Legends Collide, the monster's house, like every house they've ever had in that space, they usually have, because it's the way that the line is built going to that area is so long, or I mean, just a straight line basically. Even for express pass people, because that house is actually bad for express in a way, because where express connects into the main line, you still have a ways to go. Like it doesn't funnel you to the front like the rest of them do.
Yeah.
That house usually has like speakers set up and they usually give you a story. Well, they did that down there, but not all the time. Like one night we was down there and you heard, it was like this audio log from the Wolfman as he's traveling the oceans to Egypt to try to find this, gem of Anubis or whatever. And that's cool. But the second time that we went through that house, it wasn't playing. I don't know why. It wasn't raining that night, so I don't know why they didn't have it running, but it wasn't there.
They have things in front of the house that you can read about them, though?
They don't even have that, not at Orlando. It's just like literally, see, and the weird thing is in 2019, our very first year there, like that, the house that was in that building where Legends was at, was graveyard games. And the whole story behind that house at that time was that these punk kids were going to this graveyard and defacing it with graffiti, and then they were getting attacked by the spirits. It was actually a cool house. But actually what they did for that one, to give you the story, is when you were outside the house, it was like it had a fake Facebook pulled up on a fake phone, like being projected onto the building.
Yeah.
And you could read what the kids were planning to do inside the graveyard before you ever went inside the house.
See, that's the kind of thing, that you almost need that. A lot of people are saying, hey, guys, by the way, if you have Express, you might want to find out where you can information about the house, because you need to know the story when you go. Some of them you need to know the story. And this is specifically in Hollywood. So I don't know for sure.
Yeah, Bugs was probably the best this year for that, just because the queue leading into it had one of those, like I said, when it first worked, it had like those TV screens, and it was just like, exterminator for all of your bug needs, like it was like selling you the extermination service that you were getting ready to see malfunction inside of the house. So yeah. And it had a nice facade built outside where it was like, welcome to the house of tomorrow and brought to you by Exterminator or whatever. It had all that built into it. The facade for Descendants was pretty cool because it looked like a broken down, like post-apocalyptic subway entrance. I like that aspect of the house better than the actual house itself. But, and they always have good facades built outside that tent that they had that in anyways, because last year they had that Puppets house, which was like a broken down, like it was like in California or something. Like there was like this old opera house that had been like, after the earthquake, had like imprisoned all the people who had attended this puppet theater or whatever. And you were basically watching as like the psychotic troupe or whatever, circus troupe was like, going like cannibalistic and all that, and eating the people that were still remaining, because that's all they had, that they were trapped there and you were entering and getting trapped yourself. So it had this cool broken down, like house facade built outside of it. But they didn't do that a lot this year for a lot of them. And the Dead Man's Pier didn't need that though, because when you first set foot inside the building they had that built in, they had like a courtyard built for like this New England town that had like the cold wind pumping. It had like the wintry sound of like wind, and there was like, snow built on the ground. You had the facades for like the stores and the shops and stuff for the town. And then up above you had like a functioning lighthouse that you also saw on the other side once you were in the pier. So that house was perfect from the get-go. Like, it gave you the story right as you entered,
Yeah, Dead Man's Pier is fucking kicking ass across the U.S. Like, between both Halloween Horror Nights in Hollywood and in Orlando, Dead Man's Pier is getting, like, top raves because there's people that travel to both of them to see both. And I'm like, God damn.
And it was really cool because you get out onto the actual docks themselves as you're getting ready to enter the boats, and like they had like this thunderstorm effect.
I'm sorry.
Like,
did you say boats?
Yeah, they had like you went onto the actual boats that like that were docked at the pier. So
oh, fuck you guys.
And they just had all kinds of cool effects in that house. As you were going, like they had that thunderstorm built in. There was like lightning strikes that, with flashes of light, the thunder. They had like water droplets that hit you as you was going through there, like you were getting rained on. You saw like this one ghost, like wailing woman in white spirit. Speaking of this episode that we're getting ready to talk about, like she was on the bow of one of the boats, and she was like, singing like her death siren song or whatever, and
looking
and
for
had,
her
like,
children.
I guess it was implied. Maybe she lost them at sea or something. But they had cool light up effects on like the spirits. Like, I mean, like there was undead like creatures that just undead sailors that popped out at you. But then like there was actual ghosts, and they had like these multi-light effects to make them like shimmer and stuff, and that was a cool effect. So
all right,
I really enjoyed that.
They should have got that Titanic.
Oh, stop it.
Got the actor to be a zombie.
Which one?
The main one. And Celine Dion could have sang in the background.
That, or they could have done the horrible like kazoo version of the song.
There you
go. What We Do in the Shadows is completed for the season. Have you watched it yet?
No, I keep telling the hubby.
I'll get it now that they haven't.
It's been out.
I know. I like the binge watch.
This new season's pretty good. If nothing else, just watch it for Laszlo and Colin. Like I really like what they've done with the two of them this season. Nadja's interesting. Nandor or whatever, he's got his own thing going on this season too, but like it's Laszlo and Colin that tuned in for the entire season, because it's actually got a story payoff. When you get to the end of it, you actually feel bad for Laszlo.
Aww.
And I didn't think the show had that in it, but it does. So
we do love a Laszlo.
American Horror Stories you can skip.
I've heard nothing but trash about that.
Yeah, I only watched 2 episodes of it, and they were supposedly the best episodes from people who recommended them to me. And they even told me, don't watch anything else. Like, those were literally the best they had to offer.
Don't waste your
time.
And
if anybody's interested, those episodes are Facelift and Necro are the 2 that I've heard the most or the best about. And because Necro's really fucked up. Like, I mean, I didn't know what to expect going that episode, but there's a reason it's called Necro, and it might have to do with you might want to add Philiac to the end of it and then go from there. Like, that's what that story's kind of about. So
I haven't watched American Horror Story since that one season when they got like way off the rails with like the politics and stuff. I was like,
oh yeah, that's when he checked out. Although I didn't mind
I
that
believe
one.
Was Cult that you're talking about, Noah. That
was
real heavy into
so
politics.
bad. I was like, oh, what are we doing?
Oh, I thought it was. Wait. Why am I thinking? I'm probably mistaking for the Purge election, but wasn't it kind of centered around that?
Yeah, but I think it was the election season. I think was called Cult, wasn't it? Like, wasn't that the name of it? Because they were trying to hint that that people who are heavily into politics are basically in the cult of their own. But they of course they didn't give the political left in the United States like their due. It was
they didn't. They actually kind of shitted on everybody, which was hilarious. I thought it was hilarious. So I didn't hate that season.
They didn't shit on everybody. They very distinctly picked a side and just trashed all over it.
Kind of did, but
there ain't no kind of. It was very heavy-handed.
I don't know that you finished
it. Was so. I did. Oh. I watched the end.
Okay, well that's.
Yeah, because they ended up killing the dude at the end.
He took one side and he went with it.
No, I didn't. I did. When something's that heavy-handed, how can you not taste it?
It's I don't know. They're getting that way with all kinds of stuff. Like there is so much coming out about the Lord of the Rings and how they're basically making Numenor, like the Isle of Man, into the basically like Trump, politics. Like they're heavily like nationalistic and they don't like people to come from the outside. They don't like the elves because they're foreigners and all. It's just so stupid. It's like, do you really need this in a fantasy of all things? Like, do you really think and we'll get into it with this episode. The movies that we're going to cover for this episode are like way better at social commentary because it's there, but it doesn't like throw it in your face and say, see, this is what we're talking about. This is what we're talking about. It just slaps you with it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's better if you're going to deliver a political message, you need to work it in organically to your story and not browbeat your audience with it. That's why people don't like some of this woke bullshit. But anyways, also watched Barbarian yesterday. I thought that was really good.
I hella want to see that.
I've heard, I had a one of the noobs at work that's like, oh my God, you like horror films? You have to watch Barbarian.
Here's the thing about Barbarian that you have to go into. I don't know who is the same people who say that they're scared by Barbarian. I'll give them a little bit of credit. They're still better than the people who said they were scared by Doctor Strange 2. But they're not much better than those people, if you understand what I'm saying.
Scared by Doctor Strange too.
It's supposed to be a horror film. Like they kind of.
In what fashion?
That's.
That undead. When they saw an undead Doctor Strange, it scared the shit out of them. Apparently,
that's a horror
I don't
film.
know what to tell you. But Barbarian is a horror film. It does have tense moments. It actually is very good at setting up tension. I would give it that. Like, it is one of the best movies I've seen in a while, like, just because of the angle that they're going. Because when you're dealing with, like, these weird dark tunnels and you can't see beyond what the actors are seeing with their, like, little, phone flashlights, it builds tension because there's something in the darkness,
Yeah.
They also do... I think they do a really good job in the Barbarians doing with the story because how like it's one of those stories that like treats its audience like it's actually got half of a brain cell. I mean, in the sense that like it cuts like a hard left, like it went like very early into the movie. And you're like, what the fuck is going on now? Like, this is it's tonally different. It's a different setting. And the movie doesn't give you shit about it. It doesn't tell you it's like, oh, this is California, meanwhile, or whatever. It just says, here you go. Here's a new location. Here's a new actor. Roll with it. And it just, and it does that not once, but at least twice in the movie. And it cuts and then it goes somewhere else entirely and it relies on you to keep up because if you don't, that's on you. I mean, It gives you the clues to figure out what's going on, but it doesn't give you any subtitles or anything to let you know that it's gone to a different place.
Yeah, I have a hard time with those for sure.
And I really like the fact that the director, the writer, whoever was in charge of coming up with that, like trusted the audience enough to figure it out. Like the second time it does that, it really requires you to be caught up because I mean, you're seeing a similar location, but it may not be in the same time period that you were in previously. So you gotta roll with it and go, So, but the main thing I would say to people about Barbarian is when you go in to watch the movie, it's to me, and it's good. I mean, it's a good sort of cheesy, but it has B-movie cheesiness to it. And if you're not ready for that and you're not ready, because I mean, it even ties into the title of the movie. I'm not going to say why, but it does. And if you're not ready for that cheesiness and you're not ready to at least laugh it off and enjoy it for what it is, you're going to get rickrolled like Malignant did me the first time that I watched it. You're going to go in thinking I'm getting a super serious movie, and it is at times, but it's... you got to play with it. I mean, you got to roll with the cheese because if you don't, you're going to be just walking out saying, fuck this movie.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not going to give anything else away about it. Go watch it. The trailer sets you up for enough for what you need. The actors are really good in it for what they're given. I mean, they give you the story. They give you the reason to root for them or not to root for them. and Justin Long's in it. So if you've missed him from scary movies since Jeepers Creepers, he's back, and he is comedic in this. I mean, his character is kind of the joke of the movie. So you have to go in knowing that.
All right.
But I think I've talked long enough on this. How about we let the good folks in and get this thing rolling?
Let's let them in.